What's up, guys? We're going to review a De Palma classic that I can't believe I've never seen, called Blowout. So looking forward to getting into this one. Anyway, guys, let's review Blowout. Blowout stars John Travolta, Nancy Allen, and is directed by Brian De Palma. What's up, guys? Exciting day. I'm getting to review a movie from one of my all-time favorite directors, Brian De Palma. I don't hear people talking about De Palma as much as I'd like, and I love so many of his movies. Obviously, Scarface, Carrie. One of my favorites is Body Double, which that's like a deep cut. Like, nobody ever talks about Body Double, but I highly recommend you guys checking it out. For the longest time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think it's even available in the States still. Actually, I think it is, but I think it's available as like a BDR, which is like a burned disc. Like, they can actually sell that stuff, which is very strange. I don't know if there's an officially licensed version in the States available. I got mine, I think, from Australia. I bought it quite a few years ago. I'm a big fan of Body Double. I remember watching it on HBO, I think, back in the 80s, and it's always stayed with me. So I gave that a fresh watch. Let me know down in the comments if you guys want me to give it a review, because I think I might. I think I might give that one a review. But fantastic De Palma movie starring Craig Wasson and Melanie Griffith. But, you know, De Palma, he's just that director that captures mood so beautifully. He just has this style about his directing. He doesn't like approaching things head on, like the easiest way as far as like capturing a scene. He's even stated that in his interviews. Usually if there's the easy way and there's the hard way, but the hard way is more creative, he's gonna go that way. And that's why his movies, they're just intoxicating to the eye. Carlito's Way, that's another one. God, I cannot recommend Carlito's Way enough. But he's one of those directors, he likes to use similar approaches to his scene, be it, you know, following a character, usually a woman, from behind, kind of a POV type thing. And then the split diopter, where the entire frame is in focus and, you know, there's somebody in the foreground and the background. And this is something that I believe Hitchcock did too. Hell, even Quentin Tarantino, who is a massive De Palma fan, paid homage to him in Kill Bill. As a matter of fact, I just got through watching Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. I watch those movies like every year. They are perfection. But there's a clear homage to De Palma in, I think, both those movies. But one of the movies that Tarantino always harps on is Blowout. And I'll be honest, that's where I first heard of the movie.
Brian De Palma's Blowout. I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made. It's Brian De Palma's finest film. All right, which means it's one of the finest movies ever made, because as we all know, Brian De Palma is the greatest director of his generation. All right, John Travolta, by the way, gets one of the best performances of all time in this movie.
During an interview with Tarantino, and he was talking about how Blowout was so influential to him, and it's the reason he wanted to hire Travolta to play in Pulp Fiction. So let me get a plot synopsis going for you guys, and then I'll get into that stuff, the backstory and Travolta's career and all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about with this movie. So anyway, the plot synopsis here, this is a kind of a political thriller, which going into this movie, I had no idea what the plot was. I kind of avoided that on purpose. I just knew it's De Palma and it's Travolta, young Travolta, which really kind of drew me in. And Nancy Allen. I love Nancy Allen. But it's a political thriller. John Travolta plays Jack. He's like a sound design guy. He mostly works in like post-production. But you know, the sound effects that you hear throughout a movie, most of the time they are recorded in post. You know, especially if it's something that needs to be pronounced, then they're gonna have a sound designer come in and create these sounds. You know, they might like go outside and record the wind. They might record like birds. They might record like a baseball game, something like that. You know, background noise. You'd be surprised how much sound is put into a film in post-production. And guys, by the way, I don't claim to be any perfectionist. I've never went to film school. This is just stuff I've picked up along the way because I just love movies. But that is one fact about movies. And I liked that angle in this movie because it's not really something that's ever covered. And as a matter of fact, De Palma got this idea when he was editing Dressed to Kill, and he wanted to add some sounds in post-production. And he thought, hey, this would kind of be a cool idea to have a character that does this in a movie. And he almost has like this sixth sense, you know, because I guess in any job that you do that you are a professional at, you might be able to pick up things that normal people won't be able to pick up. And that's what Jack does. He's more keen on hearing things that are close to him just because, he's very directional with his hearing and picking up sounds. Guys, pardon the late, thought on this review, because sometimes you forget some of your favorite scenes in a movie, and there's definitely one sequence at the beginning of this movie that I definitely wanted to mention. And also, you'll notice that I am clean shaven, so this was, I think this is like 2 weeks from when I actually recorded the original review. But real quick, one thing I wanted to highlight on was the beginning of this movie and how it's De Palma trying to pay homage to, slasher movies of the time. I can definitely see a little bit of that Italian horror type vibe there. And you'll notice that immediately when you see this killer's point of view, and he's looking in at this frat, this college fraternity, and you see the scantily clad women behind the window, and all the way to when you see a glimpse of the killer who looks completely psychotic in the mirror. But what I love about this is it's kind of a fake out. Like when you first start watching this movie, especially when I first started watching it, I didn't really know anything about the movie. I was like, oh, what's going on here? Is this going to be like a serial killer thriller or something like that? I didn't know. And then, eventually you realize that we're getting a clue in on a movie that's actually being filmed, and it kind of sets up John Travolta's character and his job. This is post-production, and the director who's just overseeing his movie, and he's giving these tasks to Jack. I need you to add some sound here, but really the big thing is at the end of the scene there's a scream that just didn't work. And so in post-production, he has to bring in these other actresses to get the right scream, and that's a big part that plays into the movie. So at first you're like, what is the point of this little fake out? But it does tie in. So I definitely wanted to mention that. Anyway, back to the review. But getting ahead of myself, there is an accident at the beginning of this movie. This car, while Jack is picking up these sound effects for this movie, and the car goes off this bridge, and Jack has to jump in, and he saves Sally, played by Nancy Allen. Now, Sally is with this very important figure, the mayor, who's up for president. He's one of the guys running for office. And of course, once they get to the hospital, these crooked politician types, they rush in on Jack because he knows what happened, and they're trying to get him to be quiet about the whole thing. You can kind of compare this to what goes on in Serpico, stuff like that. Keeping this guy quiet, this witness quiet. And behind the scenes, you got John Lithgow playing this assassin who is trying to kill Sally. Now, let me foot stomp the thing that I love about this movie, because when you get right down to it, I don't care how great the director is, it all comes down to the story and the characters. For me, the thing I love so much about this movie is the relationship between Jack and Sally. De Palma is what some might call a risque type of director. He is not a director that shies away from nudity in his movies. He seems to favor, a harder-edged R rating in a movie than most directors. And you would think that this movie might go that direction with these two characters. And I can't remember if Sally is actually a call girl, even though she was in this kind of sexual relationship with this guy that dies at the beginning of the movie. This political figure. She's not a squeaky clean type of person. And I almost wonder if maybe Tarantino got the idea of Alabama from True Romance from Sally, because it is kind of a similar type of character. Because if you remember, Alabama wasn't a squeaky clean type of character, but you loved her to death. And there was this innocence within, even though she didn't have, the cleanest record. Same thing here with Sally. But my point being is that if you really take out everything, all the political thriller type stuff, and just focus in on the relationship between Sally and Jack, it could have been like in a PG movie, because they don't explore anything sexual between the two. It's kind of innocent and sweet throughout. And I think at its core, Blowout is kind of a love story. And one thing that works so well about these two characters is Travolta and Nancy Allen, they play these characters in such a unique way. I guess starting with Travolta playing Jack. I think Travolta in his prime, well, I think he had two primes because after Pulp Fiction, but in his early career, easily one of the most charismatic actors working. You know, you could not help but love the guy, and he had that quality that men and women loved. Extremely handsome guy, but he had this edge to him, you know, like he didn't give a shit. You could kind of compare him to DiCaprio today. But, you know, the camera just loves the guy, not just because of the way he looks, but also just his delivery. He had a very unique delivery. And I think even when he was young, his delivery was a little bit different than it is in his later years. Because this is a guy that seems like he has a chip on his shoulder. I think Travolta behind the scenes even like would avoid sleep just to seem like he was kind of tired and cranky throughout the movie.
Just talk to a reporter who knows everything. They have erased my tapes, they've made you disappear, and next it's gonna be me. But I'm not disappearing, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, what makes you think it won't be permanent?
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, didn't I meet you in a car wreck 10 feet underwater?
But he has these charming moments throughout that crop up, and they're just irresistible. I love his banter with Nancy Allen. And Nancy Allen plays this northeastern type of character, but it feels like she stopped maturing at a certain age. You know how some people, when they're like, you know, a teenager, they never seem to like let go of that personality. They don't develop. And that's kind of how this character is. But there's an innocence about her, and it's almost hard to explain unless you watch the movie. I got to give major credit to Nancy Allen, because if you watch her in this movie and then compare it to like Dressed to Kill and some other movies like Carrie that she did, very versatile actress. This is an actress that's not afraid to come out of her comfort zone and try different things.
You got makeup on right now?
I do.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Absolutely. You see, this took me 2 hours, and this is the no makeup look.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is their chemistry is so strong throughout this movie, even though they barely touch each other. So by the time you get to the end of the movie, I'll just say I've never felt so much emotion because of the chemistry that's built and because of their performances. Now, like I was talking earlier, Brian De Palma, he'll have these scenes where you're following a single character throughout the movie. That's pretty much what the final act of this movie is Travolta, he puts a wire on Nancy Allen. And John Lithgow, who plays Burke, this assassin, he is after her. So it's one of those sequences that's timed perfectly, and you can almost guess that it's going to come right down to the wire. And it's so much of a crescendo that there's this like iconic fireworks sequence that complements it, and your heart is just racing. And I think De Palma was a master at creating this emotion in an audience. One of the best examples, again, Carlito's Way at the end of that movie. All he wants to do is get out of the underworld, the crime underworld, but it won't let him get out. And there's like this crescendo at the end of that movie, which I won't spoil. Now, before I end the review, I definitely want to talk a little bit more about De Palma's directing styles. I talked about the split diopter, but also, taking chances and being creative. There's this one sequence, I don't think I've ever seen it in any other movie, where the camera is just spinning around this room. And, we've seen camera spins a million times where the characters are just parked right there in the middle. But this was a sequence where John Travolta, he's not parked. He's literally moving back and forth around the room, doing different things, but the camera is still spinning. And everything has to hit the mark at a perfect time for the whole thing to work. And so I can imagine that he probably had to shoot this scene quite a few times because it's all in one take. It's just so refreshing in the year 2023 to watch a scene from a 1981 movie and having never seen anything like it before. That's just the power of De Palma and a passionate, creative director, that will not settle for mediocrity. I always say a great director, you could take like a movie that's not really that good, but the direction of that movie will make it good. And not saying that this isn't a great movie, because it really is, but I could watch De Palma direct all day. He really gets the visual down. So anyway, I'm going to give Blowout a Trapped on a Freaking Island. I got the Criterion edition. I haven't gotten the 4K. I got the Blu-ray, and I think I'm fine with that. I love the picture quality. I've read on some of the forums, like this one guy was complaining that the grain was a little bit excessive on some of the darker scenes. That's fine with me. I love grain in movies. I like the original source to be intact. I don't like digital noise reduction and all that crap, edge enhancement. And I think the transfer that Criterion did is just gorgeous. So wouldn't have it any other way. So guys, definitely check out freaking Blowout if you get a chance. And I've already made up my mind. I'm gonna review Body Double. Can't wait. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this movie. I want you guys to watch it. And also be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. And you guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. And Drumdum out.